All right, so here we're going to install the Kioti third function kit on a Kioti CS2220. We're going to go front to back installation. First thing I do is make sure that I have all the parts in the parts list. I go through and count them all out, make sure they're all there, so I can contact the dealer if something's not there. And then we're going to lay out all the parts and get started on the installation. All right, so we got all the parts laid out on the workbench here. And then, like I said, I'll go through and count them out, make sure everything's there. We can contact the dealer and get more, get any missing parts. The first thing in the instructions say to put together the subassembly for the third function. I believe this is a diverter valve. And so we're going to go ahead and put that together. I will note that the instructions are okay, it seems like. They don't give you like any torque specs or anything for the bolts, and they don't really tell you like what to go first and what goes second. They just kind of tell you like sub-assembly, boom assembly, yada yada yada. So we're going to put at least they do tell you what parts go on which part of the diverter valve, and that is cross-referenced to these items. So we're going to go ahead and get that item together and then show you where it goes. All right, so we got all the parts laid out to assemble the diverter valve. Like I said, the instructions are a little funky and it just kind of tells you what part goes where. So I kind of like almost pre-fit it as I was laying the parts out to see which way some of the items thread in. For example, like this unit, it's just going to show you it goes in there, but it doesn't tell you which direction. So you kind of have to figure out like which threaded direction this part's going to thread into the diverter valve. In this instance, this would be part number, I believe, 19, and the longer threads thread into the unit, and then these shorter threads stay out. First thing I did was I took off all the they have these like little plastic bolts to keep the unit sealed up. There is a little bit of hydraulic fluid in the unit, so it will spill out if you turn it over, so you're going to want to clean that up. Also to note, when you take all these off, you do not need to keep the little rubber washers. These stay with the little cap bolts. Washers are provided on, like for example, these 4 spots. These units go on, and they have rubber washers in them. So, and then on this side, it has rubber washers to seal as well. All right, so I'm gonna get this thing together and show you what it looks like put together. All right, so we got the diverter valve assembly assembled. It's not too bad. It's actually pretty easy. You're just bolting in parts. I will note that everything is 7/8 size. I don't know what that would be in metric, but my 7/8, I don't have a big enough metric for that, and 7/8 fit perfectly. No, I just did everything kind of hand tight, snug. Didn't get too crazy on it. A lot of them have rubber washers or gaskets to seal off, so I just kind of got everything just nice and hand snug, including all the fittings. So the next thing to do would be to mount it to the bracket. So that's what these 2 are for. And then we're going to get on to putting the lines on the tractor. Alrighty. Kind of jumped ahead there. Per the instructions, actually, they want us to put together this adapter subassembly. So that's going to be these 90-degree fittings. I already have one assembled right there. And then also to put together the joystick handle subassembly, which is these 2 parts. All right, that was quick. Put together the adapter subassembly and then the joystick hand subassembly. To note that I used a 3/4 wrench. That's the size for those fittings. And this guy will slide all the way in, and then you're going to want to loosen that out to be able to slide the shaft all the way in. And then there's a little Allen key in there to keep it tight. And then that Allen key is a 3/32 Allen key. Alrighty, so now we're going to move on to, I guess, step 2, or the second chapter of the instructions, and we're going to start assembling the boom assemblies and doing the pipe replacement. All right, we're up here at the front of the tractor. So the first step the instructors want you to do are to decouple the pipe and hose, and it's the top 2 on the loader down here. Get a better angle from it. So you're going to want to decouple these 2 hoses and then take out the bracket retainer right here for these 2 hard lines, and it's mirrored on the other side as well. The 2 sizes of tools we need, 3/4 works for the hose fittings, and then a good old 10mm for the bracket. All right, we're about halfway through getting these things off. I just wanted to kind of note that there's not a lot of room in here to get wrenches. So what I ended up doing was I loosened up this guy to take it off, and then that would be able for me to get this unit, I don't know what this stuff's called, this guy loose, and then I was able to pretty much roll this off immediately. So it's kind of and that's just so because I couldn't get a wrench on these flats, and I was just gonna round it off if I tried. So now we're gonna take this whole one off, then I'll take this bracket off now, and then this whole hard line will come off, and then that'll give me easier access to the one below it. All right, so we got them all off, the 2 hard lines, and we've disconnected from the soft lines on each side. Like I said, how I did it, because there's not a lot of space in here. Get that up focus. There's not a lot of space in here, so what I would do is I loosened up the one on this end first. It would be this guy. So I loosened up this end first, and then that kind of got me able to rotate the fitting a little bit. So then I'd crack the fitting loose from this side, and then once they were kind of cracked loose, to do that I had to end up using obviously 2 wrenches. I used my 3/4, like I mentioned, and then my 19mm was the closest thing too, and it had a little slot, but it wasn't going to round anything out. So then once I got everything loose, then I could take them out, and these fittings are they're press fit in when they're screwed in, it looks like, to maybe like a brass kind of keeper. They're kind of tight, so what I did is to get it out is I would just rotate this guy around a little bit, and then it popped it loose pretty quick. So now that we're off, we're going to start to mount the other hard lines, and then the diverter valve. All right. So what you'll see here in a second is we installed the new hard lines. Note that one of them's longer than the other. Number 9 is the longer one. Number 8 is the shorter one. Your parts listing notes that. Number 8 goes on top. Number 9 goes on bottom. And so, like I said, short up top, long on bottom. I haven't clamped down on the brackets yet to lock these in per se. I'm keeping that loose right now because I'm about to install the diverter valve, and I want to kind of keep it loose to make sure if I don't want to get anything bound up before I tighten everything down. One thing I did tighten down though was the soft line couplers to the hard line. I didn't see any reason to leave those loose right now. And to note, the red line goes to the bottom, and the yellow line goes to the top one. One thing I want to note too is in the instructions, when you're putting together the diverter valve, it says to attach it to the bracket, before you install it on the machine. I thought that was going to be kind of a pain in the butt because it's kind of awkward with it being like a piece of angle. So I opted to just complete the diverter valve, and then I mounted the bracket to the machine, because as you'll see, which the instructions don't tell you, is the bracket uses both the bolt that retains the top hard lines and the bolt that retains the bottom hard lines. It's got 2 holes in it. So I mounted that up kind of loose, so these will move back and forth a little bit as I mount the diverter valve, and then all the hard lines that go along with it. Okay, so we're installing the diverter valve assembly on top of the bracket, and then we're also going to install those adapter sub-assemblies, those little 90-degree pieces that I put together earlier. So one thing to note, to help y'all, is that these are kind of a pain in the butt to install because, again, there's just not a lot of room here to get wrenches in. So I do the lower one first and then the top one second. You can see we got the diverter valve installed on its bracket. Also, as far as orientation, because the directions aren't very clear, the 90-degree fitting that you put on the hard line coming from the loader, the one that has the female threads to attach to the 90-degree male, put that one in on the hard line, and that's for both. So it's easier to install that way. And then I have one already installed and tight. It's just easier to tighten them up because you can kind of put them here, tighten it down, and then you can use your wrench to your 15 millimeter to hold it, and then your 3/4 to tighten the female. So that's that. And then I think we're about to get install the hard lines onto the diverter valve and to the actual other hard lines. All right. We now have the diverter valve installed and the hard lines and soft lines installed and all fitted loose. A key or a helper, if you're all installing one of these things, get it to where everything is loose. You can kind of see that. Everything here is loose and fitted and are screwed in a few threads. You'll have a heck of a time fitting it all one by one if you tighten it all up one by one. So get it all in nice and started, and then, because these lines are not exactly correct. I think one's a little bit longer, so it has to, this junction has to move down and yada yada. Anyways, so to save yourself a whole bunch of time is get it in there, get the lines in, and then get where the fittings are loose, and then tighten them up one by one, and I would start with the bottom. Okay, so to further clarify on what I loosened, I keep these two tight, okay, so that connect to this fitting. I do loosen this fitting to make it rotate. The ones I loosen are the end ones right here. So it's this guy that I keep loosened. I also keep the soft hose fitting loosened, and then the same things on this side. So I keep where my index fingers at, that one loosened. So, and that's so the unit can rotate, or the hard line can rotate and meet up to the hard line going into the diverter valve. All right, we are now all tightened up. All the joints are tightened up. Soft lines tightened up. Hard lines tightened up. Like I said, the biggest key here is getting it all pre-fit. And I mean pre-fit, the diverter valve, loosely put on the bracket and then all the fittings loosely put on everything, get it all aligned, so then you can, you know, move it back and forth if you need, or adjust it up and down as needed. And then you go ahead and tighten one by one. Like I said, I start with the lower one. Well, that's the top one, my bad. I start with the lower one and tighten all the fittings, and then I put the top one down, and because you're not able to get to the lower one to tighten it if you have the top one on it. So we're all tightened up, ready to rock, and now we're ready to put there's a cover that goes over this unit, protection cover. So we're ready to put that on, and then put the electronics onto the joystick. All right, so we got the electrical lines connected to the the third function valve. There's three lines. One that goes from the valve to where the couplers are at, and then one intermediary that goes into the tractor that connects to the power, and then one that goes finally to the joystick. It's pretty simple. I also put, as you can see, I put the guard on too, but the one goes right here. It's a little shady, you can't really see. One thing I did is I taped this hole's kind of exposed, and so what I did is I just used some electrical tape to tape around it to close it off, so when you're washing the tractor off, that the water doesn't get into the electronics. But as far as routing it, I just routed it around, routed it up and under, routed it on, zip tied it to here so it's nice and neat, but stays a little flexible for moving around a little bit. And then came up to the top, zipped it here, zipped it here, zipped it here, and then this is where the connector's at. So I zipped it there, and this is where it connects to the middle wire. And same thing, anywhere where I saw like exposed wire, I just put some electrical tape around it to kind of protect it. And so then I zipped it, the intermediate one, to the hard lines. Let's see as we get under the tractor. So zipped it across there, and then I zipped it, there's a little hole. Let's focus. Hole right there where I zipped it into. And one thing, it's kind of confusing, and the instructions don't tell you where the actual electrical connection is, so I ended up connecting it to what I thought was correct, but it was the cruise control right here, and that is incorrect, so just leave that where it's at. You'll see here, you got to go up and under, and there's a plug. You can't really see it because I have it hidden. It's not this one, obviously. It's under here. It's in this wiring loom group back under this part of the tractor. So it's pretty easy to find once you find it. It's got a little cap that's capped off. You take the cap off, you plug it in, and I wonder if I can see it from here. No, not really. But that's where it goes. And then I have it connected into the loader arm area. And again, I just have it, I actually shrink wrapped around it because they didn't send the connectors with the wire that came from the loader, but I had extra electrical connections. So I connected it and then insulated it and then wrapped it up. And you can kind of see back in here where I have it zip tied to the hard lines. And then you go all the way up and it's on the loader. One thing I did that it doesn't come with is I added this harder protection to go over the wire. So that's what the wire is. And then I put, normally it's just this exposed wire, so it goes all the way down, connects. It's this gray one. I kind of didn't like the look of that, and I wanted a little more protection, so I got some of this 1/4 inch covering to put over it. Now it's a super tight fit over the boot, so it's kind of a pain, but I think it looks good and it adds just a little bit more protection. Alrighty, so now we're done with that. We're ready to put my 4-in-1 bucket on and give it a shot. Alright, we got my 4-in-1 bucket hooked up to the tractor. For reference, this is actually a Land Pride bucket. It's a CB0546, so it's a 46-inch wide 4-in-1 bucket. Super cool. It's made specifically for these little subcompacts. But let me start it up and show you how it works. Alright, got it started up. I'm gonna lift it up a little bit. And how it works is when you push the button on the joystick now, it will activate the third function valve. So I have it set up to where when you go into pull the bucket forward position, so dump it, it will open up. And then when you have it in the pull the bucket back, so pull the bucket back function, it will close. This would be as you're dumping the bucket. If you hold on to it, and you release the button, it'll push it forward. So it's going to take a little getting used to, but that's pretty much how it does it. Pretty cool. Alright, some final thoughts on the install of the third function kit for a Kioti CS2220. Overall, it's not too bad of an install. I'd say it's more tedious than hard. You just kind of got to go slow and fit the items kind of one by one. I'd say the hardest part and kind of the key to the installation is making sure when you install the new hard lines to the diverter valve and the hard lines from the diverter valve to the old hard lines, is that you get everything just loosely fit, and then you're able to tighten them down one by one. So tighten them down one at a time, and then hoping that it all lines up isn't going to happen. So get it all together nice and loose, as I kind of mentioned, and then tighten them down once they're kind of all fit. But yeah, it's a great little kit. Works really well with my little 4-in-1 bucket here, and should work well with any grapples or any other attachments that would require the third function. I also like to give a shout out to my local dealer, Team Tractor Ranch. The guys and gals over there are really great, and if I had any issues, I was able to call them and they get back to me pretty quick and get me sorted out so I could continue the installation on this. All right.